disconnect between your stakeholders or your senior executives per se, and then line management. But when you get them around the table, and then you get management separately in focus groups around the table, and then you combine that information, it's very interesting what comes out of it. And when that report comes out, what happens, you will be able to have the outreach deliverables that's going to communicate your message. And then you're also, because if you work for an organization or if you're the owner of an organization, sometimes you forget. Sometimes you have to be reminded. And your input is very valuable. All right. When we talk about grants, and this is, and I could have used any private sector, but why would someone pay almost $5 for a cup of Starbucks, not $1 for a cup of coffee? This Starbucks, you don't even say Starbucks anymore. I mean, you don't even say coffee anymore, you say Starbucks. Similar to how it's embedded in our unconscious mind when we say Kleenex instead of tissues, Jell-O instead of gelatin, Xerox instead of a copier, and now we say Google it. Google is actually a word in our dictionary. So embedding these products in the unconscious mind goes beyond just the lifestyle or the marketing campaign or having a great advertising. It also is about CSR, corporate social responsibility. From the very beginning, Starbucks had community involvement. Starbucks celebrated cultures. And this is just one organization that we're highlighting. As a matter of fact, they made the top 50 corporations in diversity. They have an actual formula. They say diversity equals human connection, which is inclusion, equity, which is justice and fairness, accessibility, which is a barrier-free culture. And they live that. They have 149,000 employees. And they've gone through ups and downs, but the employees have stood by them, and they've come back again. So CSR is a good thing. It's the right thing to have, to be good to the environment. It's a right thing to be inclusive. But what about the bottom line? What about economically? And some of the things that people forget are the spending power of different cultures. For instance, Jorge, you said what?
1 trillion.
1 trillion. Well, American Demographics, and this is a survey done by the Seelig Center for Economic Growth at the University of Georgia, said Hispanics 900 billion. African Americans 850 billion spending power. Asians projections 455 billion. So to share these billions, it's important to get to know each segment because it goes both ways. So it becomes really important as a purchasing power as well. Did you know that there are more than 51 million people in the U.S. who have some level of disability, and more than half of them are female? And that 7 out of 10 people will experience a disability in their lifetime. Disabled Americans represent more than 220 billion in annual spending power. Disabled travelers spend over $3.6 billion a year. So why even say that? Why even include the demographics and the spending power? Because a lot of times when you're in business, you're looking at the numbers. Well, the numbers are there. It is important because there's purchasing power in inclusivity. And when we do a recruitment campaign, sometimes what we've done from the unconscious mind is target different groups. So I'm a woman, so I can say these things. So I'm going to actually talk about the different campaigns very briefly that we did, and you'll see the emotional connection at that particular time. This is one of the most, actually the most successful campaigns ever. We can do it. That was during the war, and that actually brought 2 million women to the workforce while our soldiers were overseas. Women usually stayed at home at that particular time, and it really did change the landscape after that. And the emotional connection that it tied with at that particular time was love of your brother, of your father, of your son, commitment, and loyalty. So those were the emotions that that particular campaign touched at that time of work, women, 2 million women's work. And then the American Red Cross, featuring women in the caring, as the nurse service-oriented at that particular time, in 1 month alone, over 30,000 volunteers. But today women want to be seen as part of a team. They don't want to be seen as separate from a team. They want to be part of a micro. They do not want to be part of micro iniquities. They want to be part of the micro applications. And that's really important if you're targeting. I just chose the Army. The only reason why it could have been any one of our armed forces, but this is because that the core always stayed the same. And you can see that they changed the branding campaign to adapt to the current environment, but the core values have always stayed the same. And we talk about effective communication, and it's really important to have, and I think it's, okay. We speak about effective communication, it's really important to have the support. The executive level must be around the table. They must be part of this, of it, so that we have a unified, enthusiastic voice. But also, management, also line management must be around the table as well, so that we can have the learning and the enhancement tools necessary, and the line of open communication. Okay. The generation that we are targeting today, which is Generation Y, Generation X. Most people don't realize that the workforce very shortly will be changing, and the landscape of the workforce will be changing. Almost 20% of the workforce is scheduled to retire very soon, and almost 40% of the federal government's workforce is scheduled to retire by 2015. And that leaves a gap in that area. So as we start to target different audiences, it's really important to understand the different generations that are out there. We have Generation X, which is known as the Microsoft generation, and they are, and this again, I don't like to quote surveys, but in this particular case, let's do the analysis where the Generation X are more job specific, they like feedback, they value stability, and they embrace diversity. Generation Y, that's a Google generation. They like to work in small teams, they're creative, they like to work in a fast pace, and they embrace diversity. And then we have Generation Z. Generation Z is the one that's going to be entering the workforce very quickly. And they're the only generation that were born in a completely technological world. They were born with PCs, mobile phones, gaming devices, MP3 players, and the internet. And they are the most diverse generation ever. So it makes sense to move forward. And these are the outcomes that we'd like to see. The most important thing that we say is that there are opportunities out there to make your environment one that is not only a multicultural environment, but one that has the opportunities for advancement. In addition to that, corporate social responsibility is part of a fiber, and it's a fiber that shouldn't just be said, it's a fiber that should be lived. And most of all, you are the brand ambassadors for the organization that you work in. You live it every day. It's actually your badge. So if you're in an organization that you're not comfortable with, you have two choices. You can either get involved and make change, or you can leave and go somewhere else. And that's, when I speak that, it's important. It is, because what you want to do is you don't want to hurt that organization, and you don't want that organization to hurt you. So what you want to do is you want to either be part of the process, part of the solution, or look for someplace else to be. Because we do and we are the brand ambassadors of the places that we work in. And that is a very short summation.
We're going to call across the hall. There are round tables. Please, 3, 4, 5 at a table. And we'll give you some questions to discuss. We'll spend about 30 minutes in the first round table, and then we'll go to lunch.